Oh, Jimin, come here. We have a tired, cranky baby. Do you want to get on the computer and share the stream? We'll wait for a few people to get on here. Why is it not scanning my fingerprint? Well, that's annoying. Oops. Why does it keep saying that? Hi, friends. We're just trying to log in on what's my password? It keeps saying it's wrong. There we go. I don't know what I did wrong there. So we're gonna just we've got an awkward angle for the video tonight just because it's the only quiet place we can come up with right now. To be honest, the big girls are making nachos for dinner, and the kids are entertained with a show. And we've got Cecilia with us again. Can you say hi? Hi. She's not a happy girl today, though. See, now it's doing this again. What the heck? I just signed in. I don't know. My computer's being goofy. So we're just going to talk what the way the week has been amid this COVID-19 stuff. And I've been hearing some YouTube channels say that we're not supposed to be saying that phrase. I don't know what that's about, though.
What phrase?
COVID-19.
Oh.
Like, that's a verboten phrase. See, look what it keeps doing. It goes blank screen.
I'm bored by that.
I am too. It's annoying me.
Yeah.
Because I want to get on here so we can watch the...
Why don't you restart your computer before you try to sign in again?
Okay. Yeah. So do you have some initial out-of-the-gate thoughts here for this week?
It's Monday. It's Holy Week. And things are feeling like this is getting old, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it super duper is. It's definitely getting old, and it seems like there's more and more draconian things that just keep happening. Like there's the pictures going around from a Walmart in Vermont, and the Walmart is not letting people buy seeds to plant their gardens. And they're not letting them buy, like Walmart and Target and all sorts of different stores. They're not letting people buy seeds for their garden. They're not letting them buy toys for their children or new clothes or anything. It's just what they deem to be essential. So they're telling people what they can and can't spend their money on. And that's insane in a free society.
Well, are they telling them what they can and can't? You're talking about the stores telling them what they can't spend their money on?
Yep, the stores, and there are ordinances too in these areas. They're saying you are not allowed to buy these things.
Oh, well, I guess that's that's a little bit of a different thing than if the municipality is saying that they will only allow certain things to be sold, then the store is obligated to follow the laws of their jurisdiction. So they don't really have a way around it. But it's not the store trying to say you can't buy these things. I mean, they want to make money. So it's the municipality. So and also, I mean, a store would have a right to decide what they want to sell, right?
Sure, what they want to sell, but if you've got it in the store, taping it off and saying, "Sorry, per this thing, we're not selling you this because this is deemed non-essential." Who are you to say what's essential and what's not essential for somebody?
Well, it sounds like it's the legislators that are deciding.
Right, and that's ridiculous. I mean, especially now with people being worried about food security and shortages and such like that, you'd think that they would be like, oh yeah, seeds, totally not a non-essential item. They're very essential right now. We need seeds. People need to be able to grow their gardens and do that. And they're just saying no. They're saying outright no.
Yeah. So sure, that's them. I haven't heard of that, but I haven't also have not been trying to go shopping. So
right, yeah, you haven't been the one to do that.
No, and that's fine. We don't need to. But the cheese was apparently pretty expensive. A 12-ounce bag of shredded cheese for $2.79.
Yeah, that's a little bit expensive. A little bit more than it usually is.
Well, it's not a
Target?
great deal. No, she bought it at Aldi, and there wasn't any bricks that were any better priced.
It's usually $1.99. Dairy's going up, and it's funny because that was another story that was this week is dairy farmers being told to dump their milk this week all over the place, and there are farmers who are saying if you see stores saying that there's a milk shortage, let us know because we want to tell them that there's not a milk shortage and they shouldn't be limiting milk and this and that, but that farmers are being told to dump their milk. It's pretty insane. Travis is looking it up right now.
I didn't. She told me about it yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I don't think she's lying, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's a thing. I posted a couple of articles about it. It was pretty ridiculous. I'm just astounded, though. I can't believe the things that we're seeing happening right now, and we've essentially just allowed. Oops, sorry. Pause. We've essentially just allowed the government to tell us what we can and can't do, what we can and can't buy, or where we can and can't go, and with whom we can spend our time. And some places, I mean, in like the UK, they're even limiting people how far you're allowed to go from your home, and they're surveilling people in public parks, like nature preserve kind of parks where people are pretty spread out, surveilling them and then shaming them on television and telling them to go home. Or this clap for the NHS thing. Every night everybody comes outside of their house and claps and bangs on pots and pans for the NHS and healthcare workers and stuff. And it's just really creepy. And people are being shamed publicly if they don't come out of their house at the appointed time to applaud healthcare and applaud the NHS. It's super creepy stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's like all of this is out of dystopian novels. I was just talking to Garrett, my friend, and I'm going to post that conversation here. He's going to rip it and send it to me. I'm going to post that conversation because we were talking about how people are just like willingly just giving it up. They're just like, oh, if it's for the good of everybody, then I see no problem. Okay, if you see no problem, then volunteer to separate yourself from society. Volunteer to not go to work. Volunteer to not go on public outings with your family. But using the force of law to compel people to stay indoors in their homes, away from others. We were talking about it in the context of fellowship at church, how there are some people that's their only social avenue at all. I was talking to a lady from our church this week, and she has no idea about lots of stuff that goes on in the world, and she only talks to people at church, and now she doesn't have that at all. And so, you know, there's a lot of isolation that's happening. We're seeing suicide rates going up already because people who are out of a job and can't afford their life or whatever. And I told Garrett one of the things that I'm most concerned about is domestic violence and people being trapped with their abuser because they can't leave. Because the law says they can't leave their house. They can't even just go out for a reprieve, or kids that are being abused don't even have school. And that's I mean, everybody knows my opinion about public school, but the kids that are being abused that look forward to school as a reprieve from being abused, they don't even have that anymore. It's really, there's a lot of really bad things happening, and I don't see any of this as the benefit to trying to stop this virus. That we're not going to stop it.
Right.
You know, there's nothing you're going to do that anybody can do to stop this virus, and we don't have a right to that either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that is really kind of crazy, but like, what do we have to do, and what are we supposed to do to deal with this issue? We shouldn't have to. Right. We're not going to be able to stop the virus. I think that's the big thing. If there's a virus and it's out there and it's, you know, strong enough to kill us, or we're not strong enough to survive it, or whatever, then that will eventually happen. I mean, that's kind of the way that that works. I mean, it's it would just be a matter of time, and if we end up getting it and we survive it, then that's what was, you know, going to happen. And I think it really is just a matter of time, because viruses are out there, and I don't think, I mean, really, I don't know. I don't think that there's many viruses that we haven't been exposed to, you know,
Right.
that have been out there around the world. And it's all about, you know, building up immunity over time, and that's what it's based on. So it just depends what ends up happening. I don't I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to be exposed to the coronavirus because you know, it could potentially make me sick, and that would be bad, or my family, and I wouldn't like that. At the same time, what happens if we don't ever get exposed to it?
Right.
Or if we don't, what happens if we don't get exposed to it, like in a year, and then a year later we do, because it's still out there, because these things don't just like go away.
Right.
Then what happens if I don't get exposed to it this year, but I get exposed to it next year? Is it going to be any different? Am I going to be healthier? Am I going to be weaker? Am I going to be more susceptible? So I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. And ultimately, you know, what's supposed to be will be, and it is. I think it does start to amount to a lot of policing of everybody when we don't have any control over what's actually going to happen. But I understand that there's certain effort to reduce the potential impact on the healthcare system. You know, for if it's necessarily really easy to spread, or really common that it turns into a big hospital endeavor, then we don't want to overwhelm all those resources, because then that means they can't properly care for the sick, and then more people die, and that's not good. But I don't know, you know, then you said there's all sorts of healthcare workers that are being laid off
And furloughed, and it's like, okay, what if they need all hands on deck? Why are they getting rid of so many people? And why are people seeing hospitals totally empty, and these places where there are supposedly lines and lines of people trying to get rapid tests or whatever, when a rapid test hasn't even been cleared by the FDA yet? You know, like, what's the truth? You know, I feel like we're really being lied to about so much, and there's just way too much panic being whipped up, and it's a real thing. Like, I'm not one of these hoaxer kind of people like that think this virus is just a hoax. I believe that it's real. It's obvious that it's real. I mean, we know people that have had it, But at the same time, you know, having the ability to make calculated risk assessment for oneself is important. It's paramount to autonomy. And it was just taken. Like just whoop, taken. Just like that. And people are just like willing to let it happen. But you know, there's for such a virus, such a big thing that this is supposed to be, and not seeing, you know, what the media is saying is happening in the hospitals and the need for medical staff and this, that, and the other. I'm having a hard time seeing any reason why any of this is happening for anybody. Honestly, if you've got, you know, something to say about it, please go ahead and say it in the chat or whatever. I don't know. It's just, this is all just so dystopian and surreal to me. And I can't believe that we're seeing this happen. Really. And the stress is definitely there about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, you know, everybody's kind of walking on eggshells. It seems like people are getting used to the feeling of this, you know, isolation, this not really doing anything, and it's kind of setting in a little bit. But I think that it's hard to keep a positive attitude, you know, about it. Like, okay, well, we'll just kind of, put up with it for a couple of weeks, and we're going to be okay, and we'll get through this. The whole "we'll get through this" kind of a thing.
We're in it together.
Yeah, it's feeling like it's wearing down quite a bit.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm getting a lot of that impression from everybody. Everybody's pretty worn down by this whole, stress, that feeling concerned, being worried about what's going to happen, not really knowing, not being able to interact with people who live lives the way that we usually do on a daily basis. I mean, staying in the house for, a few days, maybe even a week or something, is something that we might have had opportunity to do at some point. I mean, I can think of, there's probably been some stretches of time where that's been the case, but it's not very common. And like, this is something that's more and more seeming like it'll last for more than a few weeks.
Right.
And that we may not be back to normal, as the president more recently said, until June 1st. That's a long time to be not really doing anything, and the weather's starting to get nicer in more places around and everything too, and that's really tough.
In the Twin Cities here, they're already talking about canceling, keeping beaches closed, keeping swimming places closed this summer. There's word about canceling the Minnesota State Fair. And I mean, that's a big deal. That's a make or break for a lot of small businesses that are at the fair every year. And I mean, I can't imagine what that's going to do to so many families and so many businesses and so many farmers and whatnot to not have the fair to go to. And it's not necessarily about the fun of the fair, because the fair is fun, but there's a lot of economy there. If you Google, how many people show up to the Minnesota State Fair, the Great Minnesota Get Together, I mean, it's called that for a reason. It's one of the biggest state fairs in the country. And they're just shutting everything. I took the kids out. I had to go pick up a couple of things from a couple of friends' houses today. And I took the kids with me because they haven't been anywhere. They've been in our yard in the past 3 weeks, and that's it. So I took them with, and we drove out, and I was like, okay, we'll get an ice cream cone when we're done. We'll go through the McDonald's drive-thru. They like to get a McDonald's ice cream cone now and then. So I was like, we'll get a McDonald's ice cream cone. We go to one, and they're like, yeah, we don't have ice cream. I was like, oh, okay. So we went to another one, and they're like, yeah, we're not doing ice cream. And I was like, oh. And it didn't even occur to me that they wouldn't have ice cream cones, because it's such a normal thing to pull up at the McDonald's and say, oh, let's get an ice cream cone. So I told the kids that and I had to bring them home to do this too. I'm not going to leave my kids in the van in the Midway. So I had to bring them home because they're not allowed in the store now. Anybody under 16 is not allowed in the store. So I had to bring my children home.
Was that at all stores now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like so many of them anyway.
I thought that was just Menards. That was what
and
I
I went
heard
into,
and seen.
no, there's plenty now that are doing it. Target's one of them. And so I went in and I got ice cream stuff so that they could have the ice cream cones that I promised them that we would get while we were out today. And it was just really frustrating that just these normal things we can't do. And none of us, we all consented to it by kindness, out of kindness, because our government leaders said, no, this is the kind thing to do. And then they started mandating it. And that's how that's the slippery slope of it all. What you allow is what will continue. And it becomes law. And I mean, how far is this going to go? What is the end of this? We don't have a right to live, virus free. We're in a fallen world. So there are viruses everywhere. And we were talking to our daughter the other night and I said, there's something like hundreds of thousands of different viruses and ailments that there are not vaccines for, that are in the world, that make people really sick, that kill people. And we can't even eradicate things that we have vaccines for. And there's not a vaccine argument here. Vaccinate or don't. I don't really care, but you don't get to make the decision for other people. Neither does the government. And, but now all of a sudden we're being corralled into our houses over this thing that we have no solid numbers on. And we see these tickers on CNN. I was watching. There's tickers. They've got tickers for every state and then nationally and globally. And it's just this ticker that keeps running. And all it does is spur trauma responses. And that's why we're seeing people getting whipped up into a frenzy about the numbers. And it was interesting to watch it climb at first. But then when I realized that this is really what they were doing by running these numbers like this is to call forth that trauma response out of people, I stopped posting about, Minnesota just had its so many deaths in Minnesota, so many cases in Minnesota. I stopped doing that because I realized that what that was. It's really, and we don't do that with anything else. We make all these other calculated risks in life to get into our cars or go onto airplanes or to go on blind dates or to get into an Uber or get anything that has to do with taking a measured, calculated risk. We just do all the time. And this has to be included in that. And do people die? Yes. Is that sad? Yes. That is never, ever, ever an excuse to allow the government to strip away our liberty, though. And that's the thing that concerns me and scares me the most out of this whole thing, is just bending over and allowing the government to do everything for us. With no questions asked. Just keep us safe, government. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's not necessarily that any of this is the government doing anything for us. It's just the government trying to stop everything from potentially happening. And it's and it could be prudent to not be trying to do much, but to not be doing anything to live our lives the way that we're used to doing is. And it's not that a change isn't a good thing necessarily from time to time, but this is pretty a crazy way to find it, to have it be happening. But I mean, right now, we're in Holy Week, and so things are still kind of quiet, and like that feels like it should be. But it's also like, well, it's quiet right now because we're getting excited for the Easter celebration, and that's not going to be what it has been in the past, because there's not going to be people showing up at mass and going inside and celebrating normally like they do, or church celebrations all over the world, really. And
no veneration of the cross, no.
Well, yeah,
None of it.
it's
None of
it's
it.
all just different observations and observances. There's going to be different observances and a change in the way that that is observed, and it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people. And like I'm starting to realize how difficult that's going to be, um, and then especially not just like on Easter, but then after Easter when we're in Easter tide and everything is supposed to be exciting and it's springtime
Right.
and everything's exciting. Well, we're not doing things like we would have. We're not going to be going out and hanging out with all of our friends and maybe going to the park and stuff like that. Like that doesn't happen, and that's a sad thing to think about. Like, what are we going to be doing then? And I mean, it's not that we don't have things to do. We've got plenty to do around here. We've got our whole family, and we've got more stuff than we need in our house, and we've got all sorts of other things to do and games and
But more stuff than we
whatever.
need in our house. We can't even drop it off at Goodwill.
Yeah, we can't get rid of.
Can't get rid of it. They're
Yeah.
talking about banning garage sales this summer, so we can't even have a garage sale. I mean, come on. This is
Banning
just
garage sales.
banning garage sales.
Well, it's been a interesting question for a long time. Where I mean, I think that different municipalities have argued about trying to make garage sales require business license and things like that too, which is an
It's not a
interesting thing.
business.
Yeah, right.
I'm just selling my crap, trying to recover a little bit of the money that I shouldn't have spent on it in the first place.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what a garage
Or,
sale
I guess
is.
not to ban it, but to tax it. I guess that's been the thing. To
Why?
like, say,
I already
well, you
paid
gotta
tax on.
yeah, taxed on the income. And so how do they regulate that? I don't know. But if you do stuff on eBay, then they can keep track of that, and there usually is sales processed on eBay nowadays, which is interesting. Yeah, the thing I just sold it was like $750, sales tax
Oh my
for that
gosh.
$100 thing. Yeah, so it was good, but it was $100 on that thing, and then of course there's going to be fees and stuff. So I don't know. I suppose altogether it probably made like I don't know $80 or something
Sure.
on that. What was it? Like $6?
Yeah, we spent $6 on it.
Yeah.
Crazy. But still, it's like, come on. All of this regulation is just, it's terrible. It doesn't do anything for anybody
Right.
except the government. And what are they doing?
Well, I don't
Screwing
know
us
that-
over.
Well, I don't know that it really does anything for the government either, and that's part of it. I mean, most of the people that are making these decisions on the local levels, they're not benefiting from all that stuff either. It's just they're kind of they're almost being led down this path unwittingly just as much as the general people. I mean, I think about like the local officials here. I mean, they're not saying, okay, well, we're going to shut down all the roads and the businesses, for much reason other than that's what the national guidance has been. I mean, that's really where that comes from. It wasn't like they don't have big departments figuring out all these tricky things.
But
They're
it
just a
wasn't-
bunch of people.
It wasn't the national guidance, though, because Donald Trump said, I'm letting states make their decisions.
Right. So when I say national guidance, I don't mean the federal government telling the municipalities what they should do. I mean the overall narrative, like the overall direction of the narrative and the conversation
Sure.
and the suggestion and the World Health Organization and whatever they say about what should be done and all that kind of stuff. I mean, didn't the
Right.
World Health Organization say not to spend time around other people? Isn't that did they?
Yeah, they did.
Right. So there's that. Or NHS, right? Or whatever.
But like, think about the physiological, like the human base level problems with this. Like, we are made to be with other people,
Yes.
and more than just our own families. I mean, I love spending time with our family, and I am a homebody. Like, I love just being home. I don't like to be very social. I'm very much an introvert. But the people outside of our family that I like to spend time with, I like to spend time with them.
I don't hear her preach about this very much. So, I mean, as we can see, demonstrated change already happening internally amidst this.
I mean, I want to see the people who I like to be around, I have a Bible study I look forward to going to, and I can't go to it. And we have church, and the people that we love to spend time with at church that we don't get to spend time with now. And, I mean, how many people I know somebody who was like, I broke the rules and I went and saw my parents because my children don't deserve to be isolated from their grandparents. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I hear you. It's
Right.
rotten. This is inhumane behavior. We're being all of us treated like criminals when none of us have done anything wrong. Mandated to stay in our homes like we're grounded teenagers when we've done nothing wrong. We've had all of our liberties just wiped away. Like the First Amendment just, I don't know, people are paying attention to this or not. Oh, but it's so that people don't die. And you just want to see grandparents die. I'm like, oh, shut up. I don't. It's sad when people die. It's sad when people get sick. And we'll do everything that we can as individuals voluntarily to prevent that from happening. We have people here in this house who could get sick from this and have it be bad. So we would stay home. We would take the measured responses to being out in public. Right before this happened, the last mass that we were able to go to, just Travis and I went. We didn't bring the children with us.
Because it was suggested that we try to reduce risk of exposure.
Right. So we did. And just the two of us went. We sat down very far away from lots of people, from other people. And everybody who was there was very spread out. And it was very noticeable that there were a lot fewer people there than normally are. And we went in, we sat down, we participated in mass, and then we left. We didn't say hi to anybody. Nothing. And we took that measured response, like responsible adult human beings do in a free society. And now that is just completely stripped away, and it's nonsense, and it needs to stop. This can't keep going on like this. And now we've got snitch lines where you can call up and say, oh, my neighbor was outside for too long, or there are kids playing in the field in the park together. Okay, well, what if all of those kids belong to the same family? Or there was a story of a family, a husband and a wife who both had banking to do, and they took their children with them because their children were too little to be home by themselves. They took their children with them to minimize having too many, like, in and out of the house. They just all went together. And they went to the bank, and I'm probably getting part of this wrong, but they had CPS called on them for bringing their children in public.
Right. Yeah, I read that story. I mean, it was it was a long conversation, but they basically they were told they brought their children into the bank because they were opening a joint account together, and so since they were together in the bank with all their kids, and basically somebody was just uncomfortable with having all the kids around. They thought that maybe that could be risky with coronavirus or whatever, but they couldn't leave their kids out in the car because they were too young to be out in the car and supervised. So they brought them inside the bank, and they were around, and so it was pretty clear that somebody was just uncomfortable about having the kids around, whether it was for the kids' safety or for their own safety, as the teller or whatever. So they CPS was called on them, and all the children were inspected, and I don't know.
It's like a medical neglect charge or something like that, and it's like, or something outrageous, just for going to the bank.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that kind of stuff could happen, and that kind of stuff could happen with large families, even without fears of illnesses and stuff too. It's just kind of crazy, but there's a lot of overly scrutinous behavior, overly scrutinous people,
yes,
in all of this. And I don't know. I mean, does it need to stop? I don't know. Probably. Like, what's the point? Like, ultimately, what's going to happen?
Right.
Like, I mean,
I'm sick of the rhetoric. Like,
is it
flatten
true
the
that the
curve, all the
hospitals
slogans.
can't? Right. Is it true that the hospitals and the medical facilities can't handle the need? That I don't know. It seems unlikely. I mean, there's been training for all this kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right. Yeah, they do these scenario trainings too, just like
And
on
I
a
would
fairly
say,
regular basis.
right, and I would say that right now, I mean, unless they come out and say, okay, turns out that coronavirus is, like we've killed the virus. It's dead now. It's not anywhere. And then everybody will go out and just start doing everything normal again, and also be really confused because that's not the way virology works. So it'll be really crazy. But short of that, I think that at this point, regardless of whether the mandates stay in place or everything is okay, open everything back up, and just everybody be super careful, wash your hands, use the hand sanitizers that are on like pretty much every place out there in the world on the wall. Like you walk by a bathroom or you walk into a restaurant, there's a hand sanitizer on the wall. Maybe more people will use them. I mean, I generally have not, but maybe I'll do it every now and again just to make sure my hands are nice and clean after touching a door handle or whatever. Even though I'm usually pretty good, and I don't touch my eyes and my nose and my mouth and my face. I don't touch my children's faces and all that kind of stuff. Of course, they do. So
because they're children,
right? And that's training, but also they're working on building up all those different immunities and everything too. So that's part of what they get to do right now. But I think that ultimately, yeah, people will be a little bit smarter about everything coming out of this. But I don't think that the virus spread because people were necessarily being overly careless either. I think that, and honestly, as we know too, there have been concerns about these are super bacterias, right, getting stronger because of all the antibacterial hand soap,
and that's what I worry about. Like at Target,
But-
they're every time somebody uses a self checkout, they spray. The person comes and they spray everything. They spray all the touch pads, all of the screens, the scale and the scanner and everything. They spray everything. Every single time somebody goes through.
Mm-hmm.
These things get smart. Like everybody knows this about bacteria, about viruses. They learn. And they adapt. And we're getting these super bugs because of antibiotics and antibacterial hand everything, and
right, but the superbug, now those are different. Those are strains of bacteria. Those aren't viruses. That's different.
I know.
And so even all those things, those antibacterial hand soaps don't kill viruses. That's different. But then does alcohol actually kill a virus? It keeps things dry, which helps to reduce
well, people
the
were buying
spread.
up Everclear, which we can't buy in Minnesota. They were buying up Everclear because it kills it.
Does it kill it, or does it just disinfect well enough and make something antiseptic enough?
No,
that
it kills
then
it. Just like the
transmit
Lysol.
easily.
Lysol has that it kills coronaviruses on the backside of it.
Huh.
Yeah, so it kills it, but it takes time for that to happen though. Like there's a certain amount of time.
Well, it's for that Lysol spray. It said it was a 10-minute time period to actually kill the viruses too. I think what was the I think it was disinfect was like the 10-minute time. Sanitize was like a quicker thing, and there's a few different levels of this cleanliness spectrum, but the 10-minute time was like that's how long it takes to really kill all the stuff that it can kill, I guess, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I guess I don't know as much as I would like to about microbiology, but the virus being killed by Lysol as well as Everclear, it just seems like, I mean, alcohol's not necessarily that potent. I don't know. I guess Everclear is pretty strong. So.
Yeah, we have to go to Wisconsin to buy Everclear.
Well, it's only 20 minutes away, so that's not a big deal.
Right.
Brittany and Calvin could pick us up some, but I don't think we need any.
No, we don't need any. The only reason why I would get some is to make. I just my little chuckle here. First of all, I wanted to get Everclear to make medicine, but because I make tinctures and such with herbs, so I just get vodka to do that because it does it just as well. No, I just got a thing on Facebook about independent fact checking, and this is ridiculous. I don't trust these independent fact checking things because, you know, there were, and I'm not going to say which stories they were. There were some stories that were being shared in the last couple of weeks based on eyewitnesses across the country seeing things happening and people reporting these things, the mainstream media not reporting it. And then
are you not going to share it so that this channel doesn't get shut down?
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to share it because it does, and some of it does sound conspiracy, like some of the stuff that gets shared sounds conspiracy theorist. But when you can verify it in other places and eyewitnesses are like, yeah, I saw this with my eyes, that work, you know, and then Facebook comes along and says, no, you're wrong. That's a cultural gaslight is all that is.
Sure.
You know, no, you didn't see what you think you saw, you know? This is creepy. It's creepy dystopian novel stuff that's become reality. And my brain hurts from it. My brain really hurts. And this whole week I've lost a lot of sleep. This has been a different week. I've lost a lot of sleep because I'm trying to stay informed. And you rolled off of Papa. She just rolled off onto the bedroom floor. Trying to stay on top of all of the information and reading things from just everywhere. Are you okay? Hi. And it's got my brain on overdrive, and because I'm just trying to process all the information and formulate what my thoughts are on all of it. She's unhappy now. Want your water? There's your water. I've got all of this information, just trying to process what my own thoughts are on all of it. And it's really keeping me from, I fall asleep, but I'm not getting good sleep because of it. Because I am worried about it. I'm worried mostly about our liberties being stripped away because government doesn't grant us those liberties. And we've collectively handed them over and said, here you go. You can just take them, you know, and it's frightening.
I mean,
so I've tried to limit it. Since yesterday, I've not been reading as much. And I'm going to try to limit it this week just so I have more mindfulness of Holy Week and that I get sleep.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's going to be an important thing. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with, waiting this out, for the week really, and just like, okay, let's just continue to kind of deepen this, Lenten journey here on the way to Easter before the celebration of the resurrection. But then, I mean, once that comes, I don't know. I'm going to have a tough time just kind of keeping my head down the way that, it's been kind of required. But we'll see what happens. I think, but like I said, I think that like really right now, this would be, or let's do it on Sunday. Why not? Let's say on Sunday, Sunday or Monday, they say, okay, we're going to go ahead and just kind of try to ease back into normal life, now before everything gets completely, effed over the long term, because like people need to live lives, people need to be able to go to work and all that kind of stuff. And just, okay, let's try and get people back to work and get things running again so that we're going to be okay. And we'll get through this together. And then we can get back to that. We'll get through this together as we go start work to recovery. But just sitting in place doing nothing for, an indeterminable amount of time is really tough.
Well, Minnesota's stay-home order is supposed to be over on Friday, on Good Friday.
Okay.
So I was like praying that, okay, it's over on Good Friday. That means we can go to Mass. We can have Mass on Sunday and we can go partake in the Eucharist and things can get back to normal again. But it just feels like they're going to just keep pushing it out. And just keep us in this limbo place of waiting. And then all of the spiritual stuff comes along too, and like lots of Catholics are talking about prophecy stuff right now, and 3 days darkness, and making sure you've got your beeswax candles, because we need to stay inside and pray during the Triduum and not go outside and not look out the windows. And I mean, it's just lots of really, people are really scared, even Catholics are. And I don't know, it's all, there's so many avenues of looking at this. And I think that a lot of Christians are scared because they're not putting hope and faith where it belongs, and instead they're putting hope and faith in the government to save them, rather than trusting God in all of this, but also being rational and fighting for what is God-given, which is our liberties. Do you know what I mean? Am I making sense? We've got a few people watching. What do you think in the chat? Let us know, because there's just so much to talk about and so much to think about, and I don't even know how to process all of it, because it's just so much. So some of it comes out as word vomit.
Well, I mean, so what you're trying to say is that we need to be worried about God's providence.
I do think that, yeah. And I don't think that enough, we pray for bishops and we pray for priests every day, but I think that there aren't enough of them that are, because we hear the stories about, priests are being told not to go and deliver last rites to people. Or
I haven't heard that. I thought
in
that
Chicago, the Chicago Archdiocese, the bishop was like, no, none of these sacraments, and you don't get to baptize anybody without the permission of the bishop in the Chicagoland Archdiocese now. And it's like, wait a minute, this is first and foremost is the salvation of souls.
For baptism, yeah, that's supposed to be something that happens
within 2 weeks of a baby's birth. We're supposed to be baptizing our babies, and that's like, it's a mortal sin. You're asking parents to commit mortal sin and not baptizing their children. If a bishop told me to not baptize my child, I would defy them. I'd baptize my child myself. Honestly, I would do that, because their salvation matters more than their mortal life. And it just feels like there aren't enough priests who are willing to go. And there are a lot of them. And I'm so thankful for those priests. And I share every single one of those stories, that they're, these priests that are going above and beyond and doing everything that they can to minister to their congregations. But then we've got bishops that are just like bending it over and saying, no, this is the government. The government they're saying that the government has authority over God, essentially, and that's not okay. We're live on camera right now. If you can just leave the door alone, we'll be done shortly. That's what it seems like, is that they're saying that the government has authority over God by closing our churches and our First Amendment right to free practice of our religion.
Right.
That's all part and parcel to the First Amendment, and they're just like, nah, we'll do what the government says.
Right. And so what you're saying is more about trusting in God's providence and trusting that God is taking care and in control and figuring things out, and we shouldn't be operating under a fear of something that God has created. Right. Except to the extent that we actually are supposed to practice a respectful fear of God, because that's loving and that's important, but also recognizing that we need to dutifully carry out those things that we have been called to do in this life,
right,
with the confidence that God will provide for us to do the things that we are called to do.
Right.
And so then, that brings the question, okay, so what are we exactly called to do? Are we called to be going out of our home for the things that we always are going out of our home for? Or are we called to stay in our home more, even when we feel like we need to be going out to be doing something.
Go ye into all the world. That's the Great Commission.
And make disciples of all nations.
Yes, that's the Great Commission. It's not stay inside your house and paint your windows to look like the church, which is what we did today, which is great and great fun.
Didn't he mean broadcast on YouTube?
Yes, sure. He meant broadcast on YouTube.
2,000 years ago. I mean, he knew.
Right. No, I mean, he said go out into all the world, and we did that this week. We picked up food in a big food distribution, and we made sure the people who needed food had food, and we did that kind of thing, because that's how I feel like I need to. That's my panic response, is to make sure people have what they need, and so I did that this week, and it was exhausting, but that's what I want to keep doing, because that's how I can show God's love in the world right now. I don't know how else to right now, because we can't talk to people. I saw an acquaintance today because I picked up a milk order, and we're both talking about how crazy all of this is and how much nonsense this is and how we shouldn't be so afraid of each other, but we're doing it from 10 feet away from each other. That's mental.
Right. Well, yeah, we just do it. We just be careful, and I was wearing a mask when I went over to see my dad at the office the other day, and there was a guy there that wasn't wearing a mask, and I thought that was, I was like, okay, well, this is kind of awkward. It feels weird. I'm wearing one, he's not wearing one, and I wonder how he feels about that. And I'm actually keeping my distance a little bit more than he is, just to be cautious, because I'm going to be coming back home to my family, and I want to make sure that I don't unknowingly unnecessarily contaminate my family. So right. Just being cautious. And I don't think it's a bad thing to be cautious. But I wish that I knew a little bit better. How, like, what's the effective level of caution?
Right. We don't enact this kind of caution during a regular flu season.
No, I don't enact any.
No.
I just don't. I don't lick people's faces and touch my face and whatnot.
Right, and we don't go places when we're sick, and we stay home if we're sick from masks, and
yeah, just all the super.
We cancel plans if we end up sick. If anybody ends up sick, we're just like, okay, well, I guess you're not going to go do this thing now because you're sick.
I only do that because you suggested. I would never do that if it were all up to me. So.
I know, because you're insane.
Well, I just wouldn't be concerned about. Okay, well, you're sick, but you got to live life, because whatever. And
well, no, you have to take time to get well. You can't go places sick, because that's how people get sick, Travis.
See, but is it that you're staying home for the other people not to get sick, or are you staying home to get well? Because I don't think that I generally get well just sitting around doing nothing. Unless on a very rare occasion I end up with a really bad, fever kind of a thing or whatever, and that's a different thing. But basically,
right. And that rarely happens for you, maybe once a year.
Getting up and doing stuff is what actually helps.
Sure. It depends on what it is. But in general, though, being sick and going around other people is a bad thing. And you shouldn't do that. Ever.
Except I don't lick them, and I don't, touch their faces and whatever.
I'm glad you don't lick them and touch their faces.
Yeah. I don't touch other things either. I don't.
Right. I don't touch things. Yeah, and I don't normally either. When people started using their elbows to open doors, I was like, oh, hi, can we be friends now? Because that's how I open doors. I don't ever touch door. I use my wrist to pull the door open, or I use my elbow to pull the door open, because I don't want to touch things. Mm-hmm. It drives me nuts. I just creeped out by people's germs. I'll wash my hands in the bathroom in public places. I'll wash my hands, and I'll use the bottom of my skirt to dry my hands, because I don't want to touch the blow dryer, or
I use my elbow,
the crank thing, or anything I don't want to touch anything that other people have touched. And if I'm shopping, I don't touch all of the things to look for what I want. I look at everything, and then I poke my head around and I grab the one thing, Use 1 or 2 fingers. You know, this I don't touch stuff.
And I've got like a dirty hand radar. I'm like, okay, I touched something. Now this hand is dirty.
Yeah. Yeah, you really do.
And then
he does
like,
more than I do too. It's
okay, funny. I touched this hand with that hand, and now my hands are both dirty, and I can't touch anything with my hands now.
Yeah.
So now I have to make sure that I
Yeah,
don't
he'll
touch
do that.
any of my
He'll be
hands.
like, okay, I gotta go wash my hands first.
Gotta wash my hands.
Yeah, we wash our hands. Everybody in this house washes their hands. We wash our hands.
Yeah.
It's a normal way of being.
Right. But I don't do anything crazy, and I just never have. And so, yeah, we don't do this when it's like a normal flu season, which, I mean, what we understand about this virus is that it really is just like the same kind of virus that is the normal strain. It just ends up having a more, I guess, a stronger effect on more people. But
right.
It's, it's the same kind of virus as the common cold or whatever.
Well, I guess this hour live stream is not. I mean, we didn't really update much of anything. I just kind of feel like maybe we did. Our update is that this is annoying. We're annoyed. And this is getting old pretty quick. And people are getting really kind of frightening in their behavior and their responses. And I don't know. That's kind of my summary.
That sounds like a good summary. Yeah. And basically, we're giving them till the end of the week.
And then what? And then what?
You got till the end of the week.
And
Get
then
it
what?
sorted out by the end of the week. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. There's not going to be anything
Peppers are talking
that
boogaloo.
you can do about it. I don't know.
Peppers are talking boogaloo, whatever that means.
You got 6 more days. Figure it out.
They've got to figure it out because none of us are criminals. So why are we being trapped in our houses?
I mean, we trap our kids in the house too, and they're not, even if they've done nothing wrong. So
whatever, it's benevolent monarchy.
It's for their own good.
They do what we want them to.
For their own good, or for our own good. So it's kind of interesting.
I kick the kids out. I kick them out outside and yell at them, "Stay outside. You can be outside now." Yeah. He might trap them in here. I don't. Okay, well, thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. I'm going to upload a video at some point whenever I get it from Garrett. There's a raven outside that keeps landing on the neighbor's antenna. It's kind of creepy. It's a little ominous. There's like tree branches blowing in the wind. Oh, there's another one. Tree branches blowing. It's almost kind of Alfred Hitchcock-like. Let's go watch The Sound of Music. Oh my gosh, there's another one. There's like 3 or 4 of them out there right now. We're going to go watch The Sound of Music with our children.
Pray for us.
And we'll pray for you. And
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Hang in there and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hit the X.